Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath.
And I'm Bree.
And in this video, we are going to count down our favorite movies of 2019.
I think it's important to talk about that keyword favorite.
Favorite?
These are our favorite movies.
This is not like a Rotten Tomatoes list. This is not the internet's favorite list. This is our favorite list based on what we saw. I should also say, like, there's some things that have not opened wide yet. Like 1917, not out yet here. So this is going to be what we've seen as a caveat. I also want to point out that this is a transformative year for me, particularly because I started the year thinking, well, they don't make them like they used to. The stuff, we're so retro focused here, but I was kind of the opinion that everything's a big budget, blockbuster, Hollywood tentpole movie. And then I joined AMC's A-list and I started seeing everything that was coming out. I saw like 40 movies in the theater this year. And that's may not sound like a lot for some people, but it's way more than I was seeing before that. And it really was eye-opening because I have really fallen in love. Like, movies are in a very good place. So I've got 5 narrowed down that I want to really talk about, and I've got some honorable mentions outside of that. You are just going to chime in with some of... You're not sticking to a top 5. You're just going to chime in with a few here and there, right? So number 5 is Ford V Ferrari by James Mangold. Now, I like cars. I don't know that I'm a car guy. I work on our cars when I can. But when you think of like a Ford versus Ferrari racing movie, I don't know that I'm that guy. And when I saw this movie, I was just absolutely blown away because it's so... The storytelling is just wonderful. On Black Friday, Mini Midnight and I were in one of the stores, and these kids were talking, and they were like, it's designed to make it's designed to be every dad's favorite movie. And I was like, that's probably true. I think it's true, and it worked on me because, look, Matt Damon is fantastic as Carroll Shelby. Christian Bale hasn't been this likable for me in at least a decade, like a hot decade. He's so humble. The character is just so humble and so flawed, but, like, trying to do his best, and it's just, he's relatable. Really totally relatable. Even the racing footage, you'd be like, well, how much racing footage can you watch in a movie? It's fantastic. They really make it compelling. And one of the things that the press around this movie really highlighted is that it's kind of an old school epic feel. It feels classic. It feels like a classic Hollywood production. It feels like it could have been made in like 1967 with Steve McQueen or somebody like that. It feels old Hollywood. And that's a compliment. For me, that's a huge thing. That's exactly what I want. So I love Ford V Ferrari. And I thought that was just a really great old school epic Hollywood movie. Number 4 is a Martin Scorsese movie that is a Netflix exclusive. It got Netflix distribution, but guess what? It's probably not the one you're thinking. I'm talking about the Rolling Thunder Revue, which was the documentary about Bob Dylan's tour. The early to mid 70s tour where Bob Dylan took all these music. It was like a traveling circus. And it's Scorsese kind of picking up where he left off with No Direction Home. Which ended kind of at the pinnacle of Bob, like that period right before the motorcycle crash, like is like a pinnacle of electric Dylan in the 60s. And then after that, Dylan's career took a different turn, and by the 70s, this was like his next big pinnacle. And there's an accompanying box set for this, more or less. There's a Rolling Thunder Revue bootleg series that we may be talking about again soon. But the whole thing, just that's one of my favorite periods of Dylan.
Well, you just love Bob Dylan.
I love Bob Dylan, and that was just, it's an entire documentary, like behind the scenes, and they talked to Dylan, they talked to Joan Baez, they talked to all these people that were there, and it captures this moment in time in a way that we have not seen before. I mean, of course, we have the albums, we have books about the tour, but this puts you on the tour with Bob Dylan.
Does. It's very well done.
I loved it. So this is that's my number 4. My number 3 is, do you have anything you want to weigh in? You chiming in on anything?
Not yet.
Do you have a number 3?
I have honorable mentions. I have honorable mentions.
Shoot them in there.
Later.
My number 3 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, directed by Quentin Tarantino. I thought that this movie would have been higher at the end of the year list because
I was surprised.
We were talking about it. You were like, that's not your number 1. I was like, I don't think it is. And I was like, but why is that? And I don't really know. I think maybe it's because, once again, Quentin Tarantino is playing with other toys. He's playing with, in this movie, it's kind of historical events.
Right.
Such
like adding to or editing or retelling other stories.
And it's what I'm seeing over and over in the press about the movie is that it's his love letter to Hollywood. And I think that's great. Absolutely. I think that's absolutely true. It is his love letter to Hollywood, but he's playing with a lot of existing Hollywood things. That's not to detract from anything, because it's extremely well done. It's my favorite Tarantino movie of his entire career. I feel very comfortable saying that. Hey, top 3. It's pretty good, right?
It is pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Number 2. My number 2 is I gotta tell you, number 2 and number 1 were it was tough, you guys. But ultimately, I'll tell you why I chose number 1 as number 1. Number 2 is Knives Out by Rian Johnson. Now, I know
my number 1
would have been your number 1. Well, why don't you say it's your number 1? Okay.
Well, I just did right now.
So we'll talk. You can weigh in on this now. I know Rian Johnson is like, what's Star Wars? Like, it doesn't matter if you like his Star Wars or if you don't like his Star Wars. This movie has nothing to do with Star Wars. What this movie does prove is, without, if there was ever any doubt based on his earlier movies before The Last Jedi, is that he's an incredibly gifted screenwriter.
For sure.
And that his ability to spin a tale on the screen is unparalleled. Listen,
wow.
Knives Out is about as close as I can say to a perfect, the closest I saw to a perfect movie this year.
Yeah.
I saw it twice. You saw it once. I saw it twice. The second time I'm watching to see how the trick's done. It's not the kind of movie it's a mystery. It's not like it's a there's no twist. There's no It's
not like Sixth Sense.
It's not The Sixth Sense. It's just a very smart mystery with a character who I love called it's Benny Blanc, but Mr. Benoit Blanc.
That's right.
But like, here's the thing. Like, I love that character so much. I want more, but I don't want a sequel. This movie should exist on its own. Rian Johnson doesn't need to make more Knives Out. We don't need, Knives Out novels, but it's just notable that
he has you wanting more.
He has created a character. Like, I wanted to spend Christmas with Benoit Blanc, and I did.
That's true.
It's a fantastic movie. The screenplay is darn near airtight. The characters are so well fleshed out, so likable. The mystery itself is fantastic. And what I told you when I saw it the first time is that by the time you get to the end of the movie, he's covered so much ground. It's not just one kind of movie either. I mean, it's just so
it's very compelling,
skillfully and masterfully done. And it was almost my number 1 movie of the year.
It would have been my number 1.
Okay. So my actual number 1 movie of the year is, I've been talking about it for months and months. My number 1 movie of the year is Ready or Not, the horror movie that has restored my faith in the R-rated horror movie. A lot of stuff gets watered down now. We're living in the age of PG-13 bloom. Just because a movie's PG-13 does not mean that it's going to be bad.
Right.
But we have a lot of movies that just feel very safe, and this movie is not safe. But this is also a horror movie that is so much fun. And it's so Samara Weaving, however we want to pronounce it. I believe she's the niece of Hugo Weaving. When I talked about it before, people were like, well, yes, I do. I know. I've seen her in other things, but I've never connected with her character like I connect with her in this movie.
She's fantastic.
Fantastic. She should win like the Scream Award, the Scream Queen, whatever. She's the Scream Queen of 2019. Hey, that rhymes.
It does.
Scream Queen of 2019. I love the movie. It's absurd. It's funny. It's ridiculous, but it's also scary. And it's kind of, Knives Out has like the old dark house feel.
Yeah.
So does Ready or Not. My 2 favorite movies have like an old kind of a Clue thing going on. But Ready or Not was just so much. It's chamber mystery, it's horror, it's got like I don't know, maybe like a little Jumanji in there too, like not the new Jumanji, but like classic Robin Williams Jumanji. So it's got this mystery thing to it. And what ultimately was the deciding factor for me is that I look at something like Rian Johnson is an established director. He has proven himself with multiple movies over the years. Again, it doesn't matter about Star Wars.
Stop talking about Star Wars.
He did it. Okay, but my point is, Ready or Not.
I'm not telling you. I'm telling
that's a $40 million. Knives Out's a $40 million movie with some A-list talents in it. He's got James Bond in it. Ready or Not is like, I wrote it down. It is a $6 million movie with mostly unknown actors, character actors. Samara Weaving, a star on the rise. Andy McDowell is in the movie. But my point is, it's a much smaller movie made not by a major studio, made by your independents. And that was distributed by Fox Searchlight, I believe, which is now a Disney company. So hey, Ready or Not is a Disney movie.
Will it show up on Disney Plus?
Probably not. But I always have to champion the
The Artisan,
the handmade film, the single vision.
Yeah.
I think this movie was directed by 2 people, but
well.
but you know what I'm saying, that handcrafted, hands-on, let's go make a movie, like that thing, not a studio, not an executive dictated movie. So that had to take number 1.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump into this conversation with any of your honorable mentions before I list mine?
Sure. Well, my honorable mention would be Frozen 2.
Frozen 2. Norwegian Boogaloo?
That's right.
Where do they... Arendelle Boogaloo?
Yes.
Now, this is... I think a lot of people are going to be like, Frozen 2? But you should, like...
Well,
you love
it's
this
my
movie.
Opinion, and I do love this movie.
You have connected.
It really resonated with me. I just loved it. I went to the theater twice, and I would go see it again today. If you were like, hey, let's go to a movie, I'd be like, let's go see Frozen 2.
We saw this movie together, and I was like, I have all these problems with this movie. I have this problem, I have this problem, and you were like, this was addressed here. This was addressed here. This is irrelevant because this happened, and I was like, oh, you're right. Like, all my problems with all the issues that I have with this movie, you were like, it was addressed in the story. Which is something we should remember when we criticize movies. It's often addressed. Sometimes, I see a lot of internet criticism where I'm like, were you paying attention?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the movies themselves do address the things that we criticize about. I mean, you ate my lunch. You were just like, well, that was here. And the last thing that it came down to, I was like, but this thing. And you're like, well, but you couldn't have had this if you didn't have this. I was like, you're right. So
I loved it. I loved the music. Even the song, is it Sven? Or is that the...
You talking about the 80s, the throwback song?
Yeah. Christoph and Sven.
And
Sven, yeah. I even love that song, even though it's ridiculous.
Well, that was the question. For people that have seen that movie, it's played, that musical number is played so sincerely. Is it sincere or is it a send-off? We're not sure. Either way, we like it. But you connected with this movie a whole lot more than I did, which is, of course, fine.
Which is fine. It's just my personal... What I go into the movie with, my perspective, my feelings. Minnie Midnight loved it too.
Yeah, she did. What's cool about that movie is that it is... they could have just cashed in a brainless sequel to sell stuffed merchandise, to sell plushies and theme park tickets. And I don't feel like that's what they did. It's got a lot of meat on the bones. It's got a lot of stuff about... Essentially... Thematically, it's not a spoiler, thematically the movie is kind of about growing older and dealing with loss and cherishing the here and now because tomorrow is not a promise.
Yeah.
That's very compelling stuff, especially for an animated movie.
Yeah.
They did that kind of with Toy Story 4 as well, kind of about like living the here and now because, hey, every day is a gift. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about Frozen 2?
No, I think that covered it.
Okay. I wanted to give a couple of honorable mentions. First of all, shout out to Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, that was
I
great.
think that it was kind of overshadowed by Avengers Endgame. And when we watched it again recently, it's such a great Spider-Man movie. And I know that it's not Avengers Endgame. And Avengers Endgame is not on this list because it's a whole different thing. And it's the pinnacle of like 10 years of storytelling. Is its own thing. It's something else. But Spider-Man Far From Home does feel... it's a great Spider-Man story. If this was in the comics, it'd be one of my favorite Spider-Man stories. They did Mysterio, you guys. We have a Spider-Man movie that does Mysterio without having to, like, change a whole lot and be like, well, he's just... Like, that was always the conversation. It's like, well, how would they do Mysterio in a movie? Darn it if they didn't do like a pretty... Now, they've changed a little bit because obviously you always have to change a little bit. But the essential idea of like he's a master of illusion and he has all these gimmicks and they really ran with that premise in an incredible way. I can't believe we have a Mysterio Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
It's laugh out loud funny. It's super
funny. And parts of it are just very visually interesting and fun to watch.
And when we were watching it, I was pointing out all the Easter eggs too. Like, keep an eye on license plates because there's a lot of stuff. There's just a lot of stuff hidden very deep. Tons of Easter eggs for the comic book fan, not even the Spider-Man movie fan, the comic book fan. Another honorable mention. Let me consult my list here. Oh, I got to shout out Motherless Brooklyn, which is Ed Norton's kind of a. It's a noir. It's a modern noir. It's a neo noir, but it's. But I wish that it had been a little bit higher on the list, but ultimately I think that it's long, it's too big. I think it was just a little too big for what it was trying to do, but it's a fantastic movie. Fully commits to recreating 50s Brooklyn. The cars, the atmosphere, I mean, everything. They really commit to it. It's remarkable in how it recreates that environment. And the story is really, really good, too. I can't wait to revisit this movie on home media. We'll definitely be shouting it out when it comes out on home media. But it's really good. Ultimately, it was just a little bit too... it's a little self-indulgent, which I understand, because if like Warner Brothers came to me and they were like, hey, you get to make a movie set in 50s Brooklyn, go for it. I'd be like, well, I'm going to do this and this and this, and ultimately, like, we haven't had a movie like this in like 10 years. I think Edward Norton was saying it's been like 10 years since the last big budget period movie. I also want to shout out Aladdin, the live-action 2019 remake version of Aladdin, and I can't believe it. Like, I saw it, I was very cynical about this movie. Sure. I didn't even want to go see it, and then the day of, I was like, I think I'm going to go see Aladdin. It was like opening day, and I was texting. I was like, I think I'm going to go see Aladdin, because I could see it, you know, with the A-list thing. Yeah, and it completely won me over. By the end of it, I was telling you that I think I like the live action more than the one I grew up with. Yeah. It's crazy. It's like, it's got that Indiana Jones thing, like the whole Middle Eastern adventure vibe, a lot of excitement, a lot of, like, Will Smith is fantastic in the movie. Yeah. I love it. And so I have to shout that one out as well. And then the last movie I want to shout out is an underrated movie. It's kind of taken what I think is an unfair, I don't know that beating is the right word. I'm talking about The Kitchen, which is a kind of a lady mobster movie. They're not mobsters, they're mob wives. Right. And the conversation, I have yet to see a conversation about this movie that I feel like does the movie justice. I saw it was something I haven't seen before. It's based on a comic book. It's about mob wives who their husbands get sent to jail. This is not a spoiler. Their husbands get sent to jail. They fill the hole that's left. They meet the need in their community, because the mobsters were, you know, they're running the community, and it's done in a very realistic way. Elizabeth Moss is amazing in this movie. If you like Mad Men, if you like anything, The Handmaid's Tale, she's incredible in this movie. Melissa McCarthy, Tiffany Haddish. The number one criticism I've seen about both of them in this movie is like, they're not funny. Why are they in a movie that's not funny? Which is so ignorant. It's like
I can't even believe somebody would say that.
But that's I see that over and over and over. And even when we talked about it, I've talked about it before on the channel. I did a 5-minute review of it, and those were some of the comments. It's like, but they're not funny. I'm like, no, they're not. Do you think that every comedy is rooted in darkness? Where do you think it comes from? But I like the movie so much, I reached out to the director on Instagram after I saw it, and I was just like, because it did not do well. It tanked. It did very poorly. And I reached out and I was like, people will find this movie in time, and when they do, it will be justified. It's not a perfect movie. I don't even know that it's a great movie, but it's a solid movie in the tradition of Donnie Brasco, of Casino. See, The Goodfellas is the elephant in the room. Like, you can't make a mob-based movie without comparisons to Goodfellas. Nothing is going to touch Goodfellas, but it does have. It comes close to the other ones for sure. And I think that over time, people will discover the movie and they'll be a lot kinder on it. So that's mine. Did you have any other honorable mentions you wanted to shout out?
No, I do not.
That's it? Yeah. Number 1, Knives Out for you. Yeah. Number 1, Ready or Not for me. Guys, thank you for hanging out with us. What was your number 1 movie? If you had a top 5, what would it be? Yeah. If you're thinking maybe we forgot something, we probably didn't. This was a carefully selected list. Just another reminder that this was a personal favorites list. And
personal preference.
What's not here is probably not here for a reason. So we'll just leave it at that. But we would like to know what your top 5 was.
Feel free to share yours.
Absolutely feel free to share. We'll continue the conversation in the comments below. Guys, stay tuned. We've got a best... it's our favorite things of 2019 video coming up, where we're going to talk about not just home video, but some albums, some comics, some stuff like that, some books. It's going to be our year-end blowout, so stay tuned for that. Guys, thank you again for taking the time to watch this video. We appreciate you. Take care. And until next time, we will catch you later.